She walked into the room with quiet grace, and they whispered, "Gold digger," never knowing she owned the room, the land beneath it, and the empire paying their bills. If you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let's get into it. The ballroom glimmered under the soft cascade of crystal chandeliers. Strings of gold and ivory cloth coiled like smoke around the pillars, and champagne flutes danced in the hands of Boston's elite. It was the annual Caldwell Foundation Gala, a spectacle soaked in wealth, silk, and strategic alliances. Nina Alvarez adjusted the pearl pin at her collar and slipped quietly through the side entrance. She wasn't staff, not really, but she blended in better that way. Tailored navy slacks, minimal jewelry, low heels. Just enough polish to appear professional, just enough restraint to be ignored. She didn't need to be noticed. She came to observe. The Caldwell family was old money. The kind that whispered in Ivy League halls and signed treaties over golf. Tonight's gala raised millions for underprivileged children, but it also whispered promises of mergers, marriages, and social dominion. Nina's lips curved slightly. If only they knew who she was. She passed a catering staffer struggling with a tray and caught the edge just in time. "Steady," she said softly, righting it. "Thanks," the young woman breathed. "You should be working the floor. You're stunning." Nina smiled faintly, not answering. From the grand staircase, Ethan Caldwell adjusted the cufflinks on his charcoal tux and descended into the sea of applause as his mother, Vivian Caldwell, raised a glass for the traditional toast. 30 years of building hope. Let's not stop now. He smiled politely but wasn't really listening. His eyes scanned the room, until they locked on a woman near the edge of the floor, eyes down, posture effortless. Something about her presence, so still amid the noise, caught him off guard. He elbowed his sister. "Who's that?" Charlotte didn't look. If she's not wearing diamonds, she's either new money or no money. "Thanks, Sherlock," Ethan muttered, eyes still fixed. Vivian leaned in. "Don't get distracted. The Brantley heiress is on your left. She summered in Monaco." "Hard pass," Ethan replied, already moving. Nina didn't notice him approach, not at first. She was admiring a painting in the hallway just outside the ballroom. A Rothko, real and wildly out of place. "You like it?" Ethan asked. She turned. "It's angry, but honest. Most people say it's depressing. Most people don't stop long enough to feel it." He tilted his head. "You're not like the usual guests." "Because I'm not wearing diamonds?" He smirked. "Because you're not pretending to be interested in anyone." Nina gave a quiet laugh. "So that's what tonight's about? Strategic interest." "Everything is," Ethan said, suddenly more serious than he meant to be. "At least in my world." She didn't answer, but something flickered in her eyes. "What's your name?" he asked. "Nina." "No last name? Just Nina." She grinned. "Mysterious. And you?" "Ethan." "I know." Of course she did. Later, back in the ballroom, Ethan introduced her to a few acquaintances. Nina nodded politely, said little, smiled less. When they reached his mother, Vivian's eyes scanned Nina like a customs officer inspecting counterfeit goods. "You're with the design team?" she asked. "No," Nina said. "Oh, PR." Nina simply sipped her water and looked away. Vivian's voice chilled. "How lovely. Ethan, darling, the Brantleys are waiting to say hello." Ethan ignored her. "Nina, do you like piano?" She raised an eyebrow. "Depends on who's playing." He offered his arm. "Then let's go find out." Behind them, Vivian whispered to Charlotte, "Gold digger." Outside, in a garden strung with fairy lights, Ethan walked beside her, their breaths fogging in the cool night air. "Sorry about my mother," he said. "She thinks anyone who doesn't attend the Met Gala twice a year is beneath society." Nina's lips curved slightly. "Let her think what she likes. You really don't care, do you? Not about opinions. Not anymore." That stopped him. "You've been burned." "Who hasn't?" He studied her. "You're not what you seem. And neither are you." They stood there, Two strangers seeing more in each other than either expected. Ethan walked her to the valet, where she declined the offer of a car. "I like to walk," she said. "It clears the air. I'd like to see you again." Nina looked at him, not smiling, not frowning. Just looking. "Maybe." She turned and walked into the misty night, heels clicking softly on the pavement. From behind a curtain, Vivian Caldwell watched. "She'll ruin him," she said to Charlotte. But Nina walked calmly, silently, holding a secret that would one day silence every single one of them. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived in the most unexpected way. A handwritten note, no envelope, slipped under the door of Nina's minimalist Beacon Hill apartment. In sharp cursive, "Dinner? Just us. No Met Gala expectations. No location. No time. Just a phone number written below." Nina stared at it for a long time. She knew how these things went. One dinner, then rumors. One touch, then assumptions. Still, there's something about Ethan's quiet persistence tugged at a part of her she thought long dead. She texted back, "I'll come. One condition, no driver." Ethan's version of Just Us turned out to be a rooftop terrace above a forgotten jazz bar in South End. No chandeliers. No champagne towers. Just city lights, candles, and a battered record player. "Better than a 5-star?" he asked, pulling out her chair. She smirked. "It's honest." Dinner was lamb tagine he cooked himself. They ate on mismatched plates, surrounded by potted herbs and the faint smell of wet brick. The air between them grew warm with stories. Laughter filled the gaps. Nina told him about loving sad music. Ethan told her about sneaking into public school parties in high school just to feel normal. For a moment, it felt like there was no family empire. No wealth. No assumptions. Just two people. "I think I like you," Ethan said after dinner, his voice low. Nina looked down, tracing the rim of her glass. "Don't say that yet." "Why not?" "Because you don't know me." "Not really." "Then let me." She hesitated. "You keep holding back," he added. "Every time we get close, you disappear behind this wall." She met his gaze. "What if the wall's there to protect you?" He leaned closer. "Or maybe it's keeping us both from something real." Something in Nina's chest pulsed, painfully soft. For a second she wanted to tell him everything. But she didn't. 3 nights later, Ethan brought Nina to his sister Charlotte's birthday gathering, a smaller affair at the Caldwell estate, but still dripping with status. Nina wore a simple black dress. No label. No sparkle. She entered beside Ethan, and suddenly, the room was very aware of her. Charlotte smiled too wide. Vivian narrowed her eyes. Ethan introduced her as Nina, a friend, and the way he said it made Nina feel both held and exposed. Dinner was formal. The room, colder. Nina reached for the wine glass, only to knock over a spoon, which clattered onto her plate. "Oops," she said quietly. Charlotte laughed too loudly. "It's okay. Silverware is tricky." The table chuckled. Subtle, poisonous. Vivian didn't even pretend. "So, Nina, what is it you do?" "Interior design. I invest in ideas." "Oh," Vivian said, sipping her wine. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Mom." "It's a fair question," Vivian said smoothly. "You must admit, these days, everyone wants something." Nina placed her napkin on her lap. "And what do you want, Mrs. Caldwell?" The table went still. "I beg your pardon?" "I just think it's polite to answer a question if you ask one." Vivian smiled like glass breaking. "You've got quite the mouth for someone in borrowed shoes." Nina's eyes flicked to hers. "Unmoving. I paid for them. With interest." After dinner, in the garden, Ethan followed her. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low. "They're impossible." "They're threatened," she said simply. "You didn't deserve that." Nina turned. "I don't need defending, Ethan." "I know. But I want to." "Isn't that allowed?" Her voice cracked a little. "It's not safe to want things, Ethan." His hand touched hers. "I think you're the most grounded person I've ever met." She laughed softly. "You think that because I won't let you fly too close." He stepped in. Then tell me what you're hiding. She paused. The silence between them was heavy. I'm not hiding, she whispered. I'm protecting. The next morning, a photo surfaced. Nina, at the Caldwell garden. Ethan, standing beside her. His hand on hers. The caption, Caldwell Air's new flame, gold digger or genuine flame? The article came from a niche gossip blog, but the Caldwell world devoured it. Vivian called Ethan, "You're embarrassing this family. She's not what you think." Then what is she? I don't care who she is, Ethan snapped. I care how she makes me feel. Like a fool. The call ended. Nina didn't respond to texts for 2 days. In her apartment, Nina reread the article. She'd been here before. She remembered being called worse. Years ago, someone she trusted had used her, pretended to love her only to leverage her company's board votes. That betrayal had changed her. From then on, Nina Alvarez stopped trusting anyone who led with charm. Now here was Ethan, rich, but different. Or so she thought. Was he? She remembered the way he looked at her. Like she was the most real thing in his world. And yet, even he had asked, "What are you hiding?" She picked up her phone. Deleted. Typed again. "Meet me tomorrow. Just us. No questions." Have you ever stayed silent to protect yourself, even when speaking up might have changed everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you have told Ethan the truth? The following afternoon, the rooftop table was set again. Candle half melted, mismatched plates, a bottle of red wine breathing in the chill. But only one chair was filled. Ethan sat alone. He checked his phone. Nothing. He waited 20 minutes, then an hour. Then, finally, a message. "I can't do this, Ethan. I'm sorry." No explanation. No voice. Just silence and absence. He stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then he locked it and leaned back, exhaling hard into the sky. 3 days passed. Ethan didn't hear from her. He tried once, called, but she didn't pick up. No text followed. In the Caldwell Estate Library, he paced the hardwood floor. She disappears, then reappears like it's nothing, he muttered. Vivian sat nearby, sipping tea with quiet satisfaction. People like her are addicted to control. They make you chase, then punish you for running. "I don't want your commentary." "You asked." "I didn't." Vivian set down her cup. "You're not angry at me, Ethan. You're angry because she made you feel something and then walked away without explanation." He looked away. "Darling, a woman who doesn't need anything from you, that's not love. That's leverage." He left the room before he threw something. Across the city, in a tucked-away corner of Cambridge, Nina sat with her godmother, Lucille, a retired lawyer with sharp wit and soft sweaters. "She disappeared on you?" Lucille asked. "I disappeared on him." Lucille raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because I could see where it was heading." "Which is?" Nina looked out the window. "The same place it always does. Accusations. People thinking I'm in it for something else. The second they find out." "But he hasn't found out." "He's already doubting me, Lucy. They always do. No matter what I say or how I act, the minute I don't explain myself, I become the gold digger." Lucille touched her hand gently. "And the only way you feel in control is by staying unknown." Nina didn't answer. That night, Ethan sat at a quiet bar with his old college friend, Reese, now a corporate attorney. "She left me hanging," Ethan muttered. Reese sipped his drink. "She scared you." "I'm not scared." "You're scared of what she makes you question. Your family. Their judgment. Your status. You like her because she doesn't need any of it." Ethan frowned. "That's what my mother keeps saying, that Nina wants control. That it's not love." Reese looked at him. "What if she's scared too?" Ethan stared into his whiskey. "Then why won't she trust me?" "Because maybe she's been where you haven't. Where love and trust were traded like stock options." The tension grew public. Another article surfaced. Caldwell Air ghosted by mystery woman. Is it heartbreak or calculated escape? It made Nina flinch when she saw it. She was at a bookstore cafe, hiding behind sunglasses, sipping black coffee. A man at the counter stared. "Aren't you the woman from the Caldwell story?" Nina's grip tightened around the cup. She stood up and left without a word. Later, her driver caught up with her outside. "Miss Alvarez, I believe you forgot your scarf." She took it quietly. "Thank you, Peter." He hesitated. "They don't deserve to doubt you, ma'am." She looked at him. "Neither does he." Back at the Caldwell estate, Ethan watched an old home video in his study, himself at 7, trying to sing off-key at a charity event his mother hosted. His father was alive then, laughing. "I don't know who I am without all this," Ethan muttered aloud. Charlotte, standing in the doorway, crossed her arms. "Then maybe she's the best thing that ever happened to you." Ethan blinked. "You hated her." "No. I envied her. She walked in like she owed nothing to anyone and didn't flinch when Mom went full Frost Queen." He almost smiled. "Just figure it out, Ethan," Charlotte said, "before Mom finds a way to break her completely." That night, Nina dreamed of her past. She saw her ex, Caleb, charming, polished, full of compliments. She had told him who she was, trusted him, loved him, and he'd taken meetings behind her back, but tried to force a company sale using her trust. She woke with a gasp, the sheets twisted around her. It had been 4 years, and she still didn't know how to let her heart open. She walked to the balcony, city lights blinking below. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She whispered, "I don't want to be alone anymore." The next evening, Ethan appeared at her apartment building. He didn't text. He just waited, coat collar up against the wind. Nina, returning from the gym, froze when she saw him. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I had to see you. I said I couldn't do this. And I don't accept that." She stared at him, arms crossed. "I don't care what you're hiding," he continued. "But I do care that you ran instead of talking to me. Because I don't owe anyone my story." "You don't," he agreed. "But I was hoping you'd want to share it with me." That cracked something. Nina exhaled. "Not tonight." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll wait. Until you're ready." He turned and walked away. Nina stood in the doorway long after he was gone. It was supposed to be a neutral event. The Whitmore Foundation's annual legacy dinner, a polished, apolitical gathering for donors and board members, held at the Four Seasons. Ethan was invited by default. Nina, quietly, was one of the top silent benefactors. Neither knew the other would be there. Nina entered through a side entrance, choosing a soft champagne silk gown, nothing flashy. She hadn't wanted to come, but Lucille had said, "You can't hide forever. At some point, you have to show up and let the world adjust." Meanwhile, Ethan arrived with Charlotte. He wasn't looking for Nina. But the moment he saw her, from across the ballroom, haloed by warm lights and surrounded by oblivious suits, his chest tightened. She hadn't seen him yet. She was speaking to an older woman, warm smile in place, but her fingers twisted her clutch slightly, nervous. It wasn't the Nina he knew from their first meeting. It was someone real. Someone vulnerable. Fate, or perhaps Whitmore's over-efficient planner, had seated them at the same table. Ethan, Charlotte, Vivian, Nina, directly across from each other. The moment Nina saw the name card, Ethan Caldwell, her jaw tightened. She almost turned and walked out. But Charlotte caught her arm. "Sit, please." "I didn't know." For some reason, Nina stayed. The first 20 minutes were agony. Vivian barely masked her disdain. "Ms. Alvarez, still investing in ideas?" Nina folded her napkin. "Always." Charlotte jumped in. "She's been funding women's shelters anonymously for years." Vivian blinked. "Has she?" Nina said nothing. Ethan watched her, searching for the Nina he missed. He found pieces, the flicker in her eyes, the tension in her fingers. She was armor now, and he'd helped build it. Right as dessert was being served, the lights flickered once, then died completely. Gasps filled the room. A murmur of confusion spread. Generators kicked on but only covered emergency lighting. The ballroom dimmed, shadows swallowing gold decor. "Ladies and gentlemen," a staffer called out, "we're experiencing an unexpected power issue due to the storm outside. Please remain seated." A heavy downpour began hammering the roof. Thunder cracked loudly above. The room was suddenly more intimate, less curated, less performative. Nina stood to leave. "Stay," Ethan said softly. "Just for a moment." She paused, not looking at him. "Why?" "Because you promised once. One dinner. Just us." She turned slowly. That dinner ended. But maybe this one didn't. They slipped quietly into an adjoining lounge, unused, with velvet sofas and a fire flickering in a side hearth. A waiter brought a half glass of wine before disappearing. They sat in silence at first. Then Ethan said, "I know I messed up. I reacted without asking you what you needed." Nina stared at the fire. "You didn't react. You judged." "I was hurt." "So was I." He swallowed. "I've never had to question how people saw me. Not until you. And it scared me." She finally looked at him. "You think I'm fearless. But every day, I walk into rooms knowing I'll be measured by the wrong scale. Too polished? Must be gold digging. Too quiet? Must be hiding something. I never wanted to be part of that scale. You were born into it." He nodded slowly. Nina stood and walked toward the rain-beaten window. "You know, the first time I ever came to this hotel, I was 9. My mother cleaned the bathrooms here at night. I'd sit in the lobby, watching ladies in gowns float past me like ghosts." Ethan rose, silent. "I told myself one day I'd be the one in silk. Not for anyone. Just so I'd stop disappearing." Ethan came beside her. "You never disappeared to me," he said. She turned to him, eyes rimmed with unshed tears. "Then why did you look through me the moment people whispered about who I might be?" He didn't answer right away. "Because part of me believed them. And I hate that." The truth settled between them, unpolished, real. Lightning flashed beyond the window. Nina crossed her arms. "I don't know how to be with someone who sees only half of me. I want the whole story, Nina." She stepped back. "And what if you don't like what you find?" "Then I'd be a fool. But I'd rather know than guess." Her silence was long. "Then, do you really want to know who I am?" "Yes." "I'm not ready to tell you." Ethan nodded once. "Then I'll wait. But I'm staying right here, in the storm with you, until you are." Nina's breath caught. He meant it. Just as the quiet between them turned tender, the door opened. Vivian stepped in. "Nina, a private lounge? With my son? I believe this crosses boundaries even your type shouldn't cross." Ethan stepped forward. "Mother." "No, Ethan," Nina interrupted. "She's right." She turned to Vivian. "Would it comfort you to know I have more than enough money to buy this hotel and everyone you've ever dined in?" Vivian narrowed her eyes. "Aspirations don't equal reality." Nina smiled tightly. "You're right." She walked past her. "Not aspirations. Ownership." Vivian froze. Ethan stared after Nina, mouth slightly open. She walked out of the room, into the chaos of the dimmed ballroom. Back in the lounge, Ethan stood rooted. Vivian looked shaken. What was that supposed to mean? But Ethan wasn't listening. His mind replayed every moment. The way Nina paid in cash. The driver who called her ma'am. The private rooftop that no one else had access to. The woman who invests in ideas. "Son," Vivian said sharply. Ethan turned slowly. "I don't think you have any idea who she is." He stepped into the hallway, eyes searching for her. But Nina was already gone. The next morning, Ethan sat alone in his penthouse study, laptop open, fingers hovering over the keyboard. One search bar. One question. "Nina Alvarez, who are you really?" He typed her name. Got nothing. Just fragments. No LinkedIn, no company tags, no recent photos. Suspiciously clean. He thought back, her refusal to take a car, the way people deferred to her in whispers. That night at the gala, she didn't just walk away from his mother's insult, she walked through it. His gut told him something big was missing. He needed more. So he turned to Reese, his attorney friend. "I need you to look into someone discreetly." Reese's voice crackled on speaker. "That's not romantic at all, man. I'm serious." "You like her that much?" Ethan stared at the screen. "I think I already lost her." Meanwhile, Nina sat across from Lucille at the quiet Rose Garden Cafe tucked into a back alley of Beacon Hill. Lucille stirred her tea, watching Nina stare blankly at a slice of untouched lemon cake. "You told him something," Lucille said. Nina nodded. "Enough to scare him. Or just enough to make him curious." Nina looked up. "If he finds out who I am, he'll think I was testing him. That I wanted to trap him into looking shallow." "Were you?" Nina didn't answer. Lucille set her spoon down. "Sweetheart, pretending to be poor isn't noble. And hiding wealth doesn't make you trustworthy. You've built a wall so high no one can reach you." "I know." "Then what's left?" "I'm scared, Lucy. I don't want to be used again." Lucille softened. "Then maybe let him in before someone else does it for you." Later that day, Ethan found Nina's old friend Sophia Marquez, a consultant he vaguely remembered seeing with Nina at the Whitmore Gala months ago. He waited outside Sophia's Midtown office until she emerged, sunglasses and phone in hand. "Sophia?" She froze. "Ethan Caldwell. I need to ask about Nina." Her guard went up instantly. "She didn't tell you?" "Tell me what?" Sophia sighed. "I can't betray her. I'm not asking for secrets. Just clarity. I think I messed up. And I don't know how to fix it." Sophia paused. Then whispered, "You think she's chasing wealth. But she spent her whole life running from it." "What does that mean?" "She's Alvarez Holdings." He blinked. "She works there." Sophia shook her head. "She is Alvarez Holdings." And then she walked away. Back at his apartment, Ethan sat stunned. He searched again, this time for Alvarez Holdings. It was all there: multinational investments, a portfolio larger than Caldwell Enterprises, and an elusive CEO known only by a last name. Every article speculated, who is the recluse billionaire heiress of Alvarez Holdings? He opened an image, a black and white press photo from a foundation launch years ago. Nina, barely 20, smiling shyly, standing beside Lucille. He leaned back, breath caught. She never wanted recognition. She wanted truth. Vivian was waiting for him at the Caldwell estate. "You look pale," she said. "You called her a gold digger." "She is. She owns Alvarez Holdings." The silence that followed was a cathedral. Vivian blinked. "That's impossible." "It's not. She could buy and sell this entire family." Vivian's face flushed, then paled again. "You set out to destroy someone who was never trying to take anything from us," Ethan said. "You humiliated her because you couldn't control her." Vivian reached for a glass of water, her hand trembling slightly. "You knew, didn't you?" he added. "Somewhere inside you sensed it. And that terrified you." She didn't respond. Ethan turned away. "I'm not becoming the kind of man who punishes women for being stronger than we expect." That night, Nina stood at the edge of the roof on her own penthouse, wind tugging at her coat. The Boston skyline stretched around her, alive but indifferent. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan, I know. I don't care. I still want to know you." She didn't reply. Tears welled in her eyes, not from fear, but from the ache of finally being seen. She had spent years being invisible in power, cloaking herself so no one could use her. But in the process, she had erased something else, something fragile and human. Now, the one person she tried to hide from had pulled the curtain down gently, and hadn't run. The next morning, Ethan drove to the rundown shelter Nina once showed him, the one she said she was rebuilding. The door was open. Inside, dust floated in sunbeams, and someone was humming softly. He stepped inside. Nina turned, startled. "I didn't expect you." "I didn't expect to be here," he said quietly. They stood there, amid peeling walls and half-hung drywall. "I know now," Ethan added. "And I'm not angry." Nina's voice was a whisper. "You should be." "No. I should have trusted you." She turned to him. "I was afraid the truth would change everything." He moved closer. "Did. But not the way you think." She blinked. "I'm not impressed by your money, Nina. I'm awed by your courage." They sat on the floor, knees touching. Nina picked at a splinter in the wood. "You know, the first man I loved told me he adored how humble I was. He was building trust, while he was building leverage. Ethan waited. When I finally opened up about who I was, he used it. Tried to take over one of the companies in my name. Nearly succeeded. I'm sorry, Ethan said quietly. That's why I vanish. Why I test people. Because I don't know what love without fear feels like. He took her hand gently. Then let's figure it out together. Next up is Act 6, Emotional Bonding, where healing begins and real intimacy takes shape. This will be the story's softest act before the storm hits in Act 7. Shall I continue? Excellent. Now we move into Act 6, Emotional Bonding, the emotional calm before the storm. This is the heartbeat of the story, where Nina and Ethan begin to truly see one another, not through power or fear, but through vulnerability, shared memory, and gentle honesty. Let's allow them to breathe, just for a while, before everything breaks again. 2 weeks passed. The shelter's renovation began. Ethan showed up every morning, not in suits, but in jeans and an old flannel. Nina was always already there, hair in a bun, sleeves rolled up, clipboard in hand. They didn't talk about the Caldwell name or Alvarez Holdings. They talked about tiles, paint colors, how many rooms the shelter should have. This place, Ethan said one day, brushing dust off his arm, is the first thing I've ever worked on that didn't involve money first. Nina looked over at him, brow raised. You mean it involved meaning first? Exactly. They shared a smile across an unfinished hallway. It was a different kind of intimacy. Not kisses or candlelight, but drywall, scraped knees, and mutual effort. One afternoon, while they painted the front room, Nina turned on an old radio she'd found in storage. A raspy jazz melody filled the air. Ethan looked over. You like jazz? Only the sad kind. He chuckled. Why does that not surprise me? She stuck her tongue out. Because you think I'm dramatic. I think you're hiding an entire opera behind your eyes. She turned, brush pausing in midair. I don't want to hide anymore, she said quietly. You don't have to. They stood still, music wrapping around them. Then Ethan took the brush from her hand and gently dabbed blue paint on her cheek. She gasped. You did not. He grinned. Now we match. She lunged, grabbing her own brush. 10 seconds later, both were laughing, covered in streaks of dusty blue. Later that evening, after the workers had left, Ethan found her alone in the living room, bare walls, exposed beams, the radio still playing. He held out his hand. Dance with me. She hesitated, then took it. They danced in silence. No steps. Just slow movement. Hands. A forehead resting on a shoulder. Ethan whispered, I'm not good at this. Nina smiled into his chest. Neither am I. But I want to try. So do I. No declarations. No expectations. Just presence. And in that empty room, two people who had lived in fortresses started building a bridge instead. A few days later, Lucille came by with lemon muffins and that knowing smile only older women carried. She watched them bicker over cabinet handles like an old married couple. After Nina left the room, Lucille leaned in toward Ethan. She's letting you see her, she said. I know. She never did that with Caleb. Ethan looked up sharply. That's the ex. Lucille nodded. He made her feel like love was a performance. You make her feel like love is safe. Ethan was quiet for a long time. I'm not sure I know how to protect her. She doesn't need protecting, Lucille said. She needs someone who won't disappear when the narrative changes. That night, Ethan and Nina sat on the roof of the shelter, overlooking the city lights. She had brought a bottle of wine. He brought silence. I hated being rich, she said softly. It made people small around me. Like they couldn't be real. He nodded. It made people shallow around me. So we were both lonely at the top? Turned. I wasn't at the top. I was just on the shelf, polished and expected to behave. She smiled at that. Then, I think I love this place. The shelter? No. This moment. The fact that nothing else matters right now. He leaned in. So let's not let anything ruin it. Their kiss was soft, deliberate, and deep, like an answer to a question that had been echoing too long. Back at her apartment, Nina sat with a letter in her lap. Handwritten. Her fingers trembled as she placed it inside a small box, along with a bracelet her mother gave her, the only thing she wore to remind herself of who she used to be. The letter was addressed to Ethan in case I can't say it. She hoped she'd never have to give it to him. But she couldn't throw it away either. Elsewhere, in a quiet office beneath the Caldwell estate, Vivian Caldwell reviewed a file. Inside were articles, bank records, photographs, all confirming who Nina Alvarez was. Vivian closed the folder, sat back, and whispered to herself. She played us. But this time, her voice lacked triumph. There was something else there. Uncertainty. Or fear. Because if Nina wasn't a threat, she was something worse. Proof that someone outside their world could make her son happy. And Vivian wasn't ready to lose control. It happened on a Monday morning. Nina was at the shelter early, laying out revised floor plans for the architects, when her phone buzzed 3 times in rapid succession. Then silence. Then Reese's name appeared. She answered. Nina, don't panic, but you're trending. Her stomach dropped. What? Someone leaked the Alvarez files. You've been outed. She didn't speak. Reese continued, it's everywhere. The press found your real estate records, private jet logs, the offshore holdings, all of it. Full name. CEO status. Even your foundation work. Nina closed her eyes. And, Reese added, voice tightening, they're calling you the gold digger who owned the empire. By noon, every major financial outlet had picked it up. From nobody to billionaire, Nina Alvarez's hidden empire, gold digger? No, gold standard. Heiress of silence, the woman who made everyone think she was poor. The same society that once whispered behind her back now screamed her name. Talk shows speculated. Forums debated. Old photos resurfaced. Her name, her life, her wealth, everything she had hidden, was now theirs to devour. At the shelter, volunteers glanced at her sideways. Her phone vibrated endlessly. Lucille arrived, arms open. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Nina stood frozen, breath shallow. Do you think he believes I did this? She asked softly. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his car outside his office. Charlotte had sent the link. He watched the interview 3 times. A news anchor holding a glossy photo of Nina from years ago, standing next to an aircraft bearing the Alvarez Holdings logo. The anchor called her deceptive. A power player who manipulated an elite family for emotional gain. The bile rose in his throat, not because he believed it, but because this was what she had feared all along. And now it was real. And he had once accused her of hiding. That night, Ethan arrived at her apartment. No driver. No message. Just raw confusion and pain on his face. Nina opened the door, already bracing for impact. You knew, he asked. About the leak? No. Reese called me this morning. I didn't do this, Ethan. But you knew it would come. I tried to tell you. I almost did. He stepped inside. So I had to find out with the rest of the world? No. I was protecting myself. No, he said sharply. You were protecting the illusion. Nina flinched. You think I wanted this attention? I think you controlled every variable. Except me. She crossed her arms, voice rising. And you think I owed you everything? I let myself love you, Ethan. I gave you everything I had left to give. He looked gutted. I didn't want your money, Nina. I wanted the truth. And I wanted the truth about you, she whispered. But the second the press came for me, you looked at me like they did. His voice dropped. Because I don't know who you are anymore. She swallowed hard. Then maybe you never did. He left. No slammed door. No dramatic goodbye. Just absence. The kind that echoes in walls long after footsteps fade. Nina sat on her couch, staring at the blank television screen. The buzz of incoming calls didn't move her. The headlines kept multiplying. Heiress or heartbreaker? From hidden to hated, the Nina Alvarez scandal. She turned her phone off. Went to her bedroom. Opened the box. And reread the letter she'd written weeks ago. Ethan, if you're reading this, I was too afraid to say it. Too afraid you'd run before I could finish. I never wanted to trick you. I wanted to be sure that if you loved me, it was for who I was without the title. But I made a mistake. I thought hiding was safer than trusting. I was wrong. I love you. Nina. She folded it, placed it back in the box. Didn't cry. Not yet. At the Caldwell estate, Ethan ignored Vivian, ignored his phone, ignored everything. He stood at the edge of their estate garden, the same one where Nina had once been insulted, where he had once stayed silent. Charlotte joined him quietly. You still love her? She asked. He nodded. Then fix it. I hurt her. And she hid from you. You're both wrong. So be the first one to stop acting like it's a war. Ethan looked at his sister. I'm scared. Of what? That I don't deserve her. Charlotte squeezed his hand. Then go earn her. But just as Ethan found clarity, Vivian made her final move. She called a journalist, an old friend with a taste for scandal. I have a statement, she said. Off the record. She spun a tale, that Nina targeted Ethan intentionally, that the gala incident was planned, that their family had been used for status. And by morning, a new headline hit. Caldwell matriarch claims scheme, we were played. She drove alone to a remote property in Vermont, a weathered villa she had inherited from her grandfather. The last time she had visited, she was a teenager. Back then, it was where she'd learned the value of solitude, of making her own fire, cooking her own food, earning her own quiet. The fireplace groaned as she lit it. Nina sat cross-legged on the floor, wrapped in a shawl, staring into the flames. I gave him every part of me, she whispered aloud. And still he walked. And yet, she hadn't told him the truth until it was too late. Back in Boston, Ethan stood at the edge of the marina, where the sea slammed against docked yachts like it was trying to remind him something should still move, even when everything felt stuck. He hadn't answered Charlotte's texts, barely spoken to Vivian. He'd tried to drown the noise with workouts, then with scotch. Nothing worked. In the quiet moments, her voice echoed. I gave you everything I had left to give. I was afraid the truth would change everything. He pulled the letter from his coat pocket. He hadn't told her, but when he'd gone to her apartment, he'd found it in the box. He'd read it 100 times. And with each line, his shame deepened. Meanwhile, Vivian was unraveling. The press had turned on her now. The journalist she fed twisted the narrative, and instead of praising her as a protective mother, the public saw her as manipulative, cold, controlling. The comments were brutal. She ruined her son's happiness. Old money arrogance at its finest. She feared a woman who didn't need her. Vivian Caldwell, once feared and admired, now sat in her solarium, face pale, phone abandoned, reputation in shambles. And still, she whispered, I was trying to protect him. But no one was listening anymore. Ethan showed up on Lucille's doorstep 2 days later. She opened the door in a cardigan and slippers. No surprise on her face. I was wondering when you'd stop running. I wasn't ready to face myself, Ethan said. Lucille stepped aside. Come in. Tea's on. They sat in her kitchen, lemon cookies on the table. I thought I was protecting myself, he said. But really, I just didn't want to be wrong. Lucille nodded. You were afraid of who she really was. No. I was afraid of who I really was around her. Lucille looked up. And who is that? Ethan's voice cracked. Someone better than I used to be. Lucille leaned forward. Then go find her. And be that man. That night, Nina wrote a new letter. A real one. No longer out of fear, but clarity. Dear Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I found the courage to tell you the truth face to face. Not the truth about my name or my wealth. The truth that I loved you, long before I trusted you. I forgive you. And I hope, someday, you can forgive me for not letting you in sooner. If we can start again, I'll stop hiding. But I won't beg. You'll have to find your way back. Nina. She folded it. No box this time. Just hope. Ethan returned to her apartment. Empty. He tried the shelter. Abandoned, mid-construction. He visited Reese, Charlotte, even dared to ask Vivian. Nothing. Then, Lucille called him. One word, Vermont. He drove through the night, through rain, through doubt, through every moment he'd failed her. He didn't care if she yelled. He only cared if she opened the door. It was dawn when he arrived. The villa was shrouded in mist, the mountains half asleep. He climbed the porch steps slowly, knocked once. The door creaked open. Nina stood there, barefoot, hoodie, tired eyes. Her expression unreadable. He swallowed. "I read your letter," he said. She didn't move. "I came to write mine in person." Still silence. Then softly she stepped aside. "Come in." The fire crackled gently in the villa's hearth. Nina poured Ethan coffee in a chipped white mug and sat across from him in silence. No tension. Just air between them that needed filling. Ethan cleared his throat. "I thought about what you said, about not begging." Nina watched him, unreadable. "I'm not here to beg," he added. "I'm here to show up. And stay." Still, she said nothing. He took a breath. "I let fear dress itself up as principle. I walked away when you needed truth, not proof." Nina finally spoke. "You walked away when I was at my most exposed." "I know. And I forgave you," she said softly. "Even before you left Boston." He looked up. Hope flared in his eyes. They walked outside into the morning fog. Dew clung to the leaves. The air smelled like pine and wet soil. Nina took him to a stone bench her grandfather built. She sat, then said without preamble, "My real name is Catalina Alvarez. Nina was what my mother called me when no one was around. The world took Catalina and turned it into a brand." Ethan sat beside her, quiet. "I spent my whole life trying to hide how powerful I was, just to see if anyone would love me when I had nothing." He nodded. "I didn't fall in love with a brand. I fell for the woman fixing tiles and wearing blue paint on her cheeks." She smiled faintly. "I believe you now." Days later, after returning to Boston, Nina received an envelope, no return address, but the seal was Caldwell's. She hesitated, then opened it. "Nina, I underestimated you. That is not an apology, it is an admission of my flaw. I feared what I could not control. What I feared most was that you might love my son in ways I never taught him to expect, unconditionally. If you still want him, I won't stand in your way. If you don't, I'll understand. Vivian." Nina folded the letter. Her hands trembled, not from anger, but release. Power, for once, had bowed not to wealth, but to character. 1 month later, another gala. Same venue. Same press presence. Same glittering elite. But this time, the narrative was different. Nina Alvarez, heiress turned philanthropist, launches Shelter Network. The room buzzed as guests awaited the keynote. Nina stepped onto the stage, no flash, no theatrics. Just a tailored ivory suit, eyes steady, presence quiet but commanding. "Good evening," she said into the mic. "A few months ago, you didn't know who I was. Now you think you do. But I'm not here to prove anything." She paused. "I'm here because I want to build something with the very people the world overlooks, just like it once overlooked me." Scattered applause. Then more. And at the very back of the room, Ethan. Watching. Smiling. She found him afterward in the garden. Not a word passed for a moment. He broke the silence. "You were brilliant." She shrugged. "I was honest." He stepped closer. "Are we okay?" Nina looked at him, something soft in her eyes. "We will be." They stood inches apart. "You never said it," he whispered. Not out loud. "What?" "That you love me." She stepped in. "I didn't want to say it until I meant it with nothing held back. And now." She placed a hand on his chest. "Now I do." He took her face in his hands and kissed her, deeply, without fear or hesitation. No wealth. No titles. No war. Just love. A photo surfaced on a small charity blog 1 year later. Nina and Ethan, standing outside the very first completed shelter, cutting the ribbon together. No press junket. No PR rollout. Just 2 people doing the work. The caption? They called her a gold digger, until she gave everything away. They whispered, "Gold digger," when she walked in. But she owned the land beneath their feet, the empire above their heads, and the only heart that had never been for sale. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.